So and this part you don't need to write down, but just a reminder. On Thursday, we did one-step equations where you had to add or subtract. So you always looked on the side of the variable first, right? And then you said, well, this is a -4, so the opposite of -4 was +4. And then you did the opposite on both sides. And of course, the goal was to get 0 whenever you added, subtracted, you had to get 0. You didn't write that +0 part, but it is implied. Okay, you just wrote x equals -1, and then you were finished. Okay? And then Friday, very similar. Start on the side of the variable, and note that this was multiplication. And that was important, as we saw in the warm-up, because if you don't see the difference between an addition, subtraction, and multiplication, you might accidentally do a reciprocal when you're not supposed to. So here, it is multiplication. You know, anytime a variable is right next to a number, that's multiplication. Okay? The number in front of variable is called coefficient. So the coefficient here is 5/6, 5/6. And the way to cancel this out, so to speak, was to multiply by its reciprocal. If you multiply by the reciprocal, okay, whatever's on top, put it on the bottom, so that equals 1 and cancels out. And likewise here, whatever's on the bottom is on the top, so that equals 1 and cancels out as well. Do a little cross-canceling if possible on the other side. And again, we don't write the 1, just like we don't write the 0, but I'm making a point that when you add, subtract, when you cancel out, it means equals 0. But when you multiply or divide, cancel out means equals 1. So your final answer was x equals 4/5. So today would just be a good time to combine them all together. Let's do an adding, subtracting with a multiplying by a reciprocal, all in the same problem. So the steps here will be the same. Okay, you'll get more practice at it, which is good. So go ahead and write down these steps because it works pretty much every time as long as we do all the little things as well. Start on the side with the variable. Okay, so we're going to do basically the same what you just saw. We did x minus 4. That was Thursday, and then 2/5 x, that was Friday. So let's do a 2/5 x minus 4. Same steps. Just put it all together. So start on the side of the variable, left. Find the number that's being added or subtracted. So you have an option, right? You have two things you got to do. Which one you do first? Always adding, subtracting, and this is basically the reverse of order of operations. Order of operations, adding, subtracting is last. Solving equations is first. Okay, so what number is that? Right? Some people look at this and say 4, but you got to be careful that a minus sign is the same as a negative. So that's a -4. So the opposite of -4 is definitely +4. Put a line across the whole thing. Okay. You don't have to write the +0. Just making a point that they add the 0. Okay? So that's probably the next step you'll have. 2/5 x equals 10. And then from there, do what we did on Friday. This is multiplication, so in order to cancel out 2/5, you've got to multiply by that's reciprocal of 2/5, which is 5/2, 5/2. You use that because it cancels the top and bottom out perfectly. Okay. And on the right-hand side, very similar. How many times does 2 go into 10? And then multiply. You don't have to write the 1x equals 25. Just making a point that when they cancel out, they do equal 1. As opposed to 0. So it's one of those things maybe right off on the side of your paper. Cancel out means two different things. Cancel out could mean equals 0, like it did on the first step, -4, +4. It means equals 0. On the second step, cancel out meant equals 1, because it was reciprocals. So it's kind of confusing when somebody's telling you, oh, those cancel out. And it's like, if you don't know what they cancel out to, depending on what you're doing, you might think, well, maybe this equals 0 or something, but it doesn't. We try to avoid 0 as much as possible. You start dividing by 0, things happen really bad. You ever get a chance, get a calculator, and put anything divided by 0, and it says error. You can't really do it too easily without a lot of calculus. Okay, so as I mentioned, the parts with the blue in it, you don't really need. So on your paper, here's what you would actually show. Okay, that's the part you would show. And a little bit less. Okay, so write these down. And I'll give you a second to do that. So let's talk out this. So look on the side with the variable, step 1. Look at the number being added, subtracted. What number is being added, subtracted? 4. So you're going to subtract 4 on both sides. Then, don't write anything down. We're just walking through this verbally, right? And then you have a coefficient of 5. The reciprocal of 5 is? What's the reciprocal of 5? Alright. Okay, how about this? 5, how do you write 5 as a fraction? 5 over 1. What's the reciprocal of 5? 1 over 5. So you're going to multiply by 1 over 5 on both sides. So you see how you have that step ahead of time. I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides and then multiply both sides by 1/5. That's how you kind of want to look at these. Not just start writing and then hopefully in the middle I know what to do next, but have a plan. Same thing here. What's the number that's being added or subtracted right here? -4. So what are you going to do to both sides first? If it's a -4, you're going to add 4 to both sides. Okay, so that's the first step, is add 4 to both sides. How would you write this part as a fraction? The x over 3. 1/3 x. Right? What's the reciprocal of 1 over 3? 3 over 1. So now you have your steps. I'm going to add 4 to both sides, then I'm going to multiply by 3 over 1 before I write anything down. Okay, now go ahead and do 1 and 2. Now you know the plan. Now you know what you're going to do. Go ahead and execute the plan. Alright, so we got, subtract 4 on both sides. 5 times what is 35 is the new question. That's the same as 5 over 1, multiplied by its reciprocal. And 35 times 1/5 is also the same as 35 divided by 5, which is just 7. Number 2. Opposite of -4 would be add 4 both sides. Notice how I changed x over 3, x divided by 3, to 1/3 times x. That little thing we did in the warm-up, same thing here. Always separate them. Then multiply by your reciprocal. 6 times 3 over 1 is just 18. Okay. So let's do the same thing again, number 3. The variable is on the left side. What number is being added or subtracted? 7. Is that positive or negative? Positive. So the first step is -7 on both sides. But before you do that, think about what the second step is. So what's the number in front of the x? Close. -1, right? Look at this carefully. Right? It's minus x, but minus is the same as a negative. So how are you going to get rid of a -1? Divide or multiply by -1. That's the one case where it doesn't matter. -1's special that way. It doesn't matter which one you do. So you have your steps now. You're going to subtract 7 on both sides, because this is a positive 7. And then you're going to multiply by -1, because this is a -1. And then go ahead and execute that plan. All right, 7 both sides. It's a -1. So multiply by -1 on both sides. Now you could also divide by -1, you get the same answer. That's fine. Okay. All right. Your homework is going to be over here on your way out. Got pretty close to the end of the period fast. There you have it.